Join me in this video on a virtual whirlwind tour of cloud forests and lowland rainforests as I share with you some of my recent field sketches and painting. I'll also offer insights into my process of outdoor sketching and watercolor painting, hoping to inspire you towards a practice of nature journaling on your own. Hi, I'm Christine, and I'm an artist, naturalist, and educator. And I specialize in teaching folks just like you how to enjoy nature through the process of nature sketching. So let's get started. This is a white colored mannequin, and you may know mannequins maybe from the YouTube. You may have heard of the bird, what's it called, the Michael Jackson bird that jumps around on the stem very quickly. Those are mannequins. They have this really interesting dance that they do, and they kind of make this clicking sound like that, sort of. So like this guy, I was lucky that he sat there for quite a while, so I was drawing him, and then I added the colors later. Here's just some quick sketches I did in Peru, and you can see that they're just super loose. Most of these sketches were done in 30 seconds or a couple minutes of the hummingbirds coming back and forth, right? So I've just added color here to help me identify the species, right? So nothing at all fancy here, just having fun looking at the birds we're watching. Here's an example of just a monochrome painting. So that's basically just using one color, and that really helps to speed up the process when you're in the field. I was at Copan, which is some Mayan ruins in northern Honduras on the border of Guatemala. And so I didn't have long. I just mainly wanted to look at this sculpture. So I used just one color, and that also helped speed up the process. And I could just, model three-dimensionally a little bit with the value, with values. So that was really fun. And I was just sitting on the floor outside, the ground outside, looking at this sculpture. Incredible place. Now here's in Honduras. Now these, you can see, are a little bit farther along, right, these sketches, than the first hummingbirds I showed you. So that's just because I had a little bit more time, right? So everything doesn't have to be finished. Your sketchbook's just going to look the way it looks, depending on how much time you got observing the organisms. And usually I like to try to leave a couple pages blank when I'm doing a sketch of a species, so I can go back and if I see that species again, keep those sketches close by. So here I was lucky enough to be able to sit on a veranda and watch these birds. I didn't even have binoculars. They were so close. So that was just real fun, and I was able to model them and add those colors a little bit better. Again, this isn't supposed to be even field guide level sketches. These are mainly just showing poses of the birds and showing the identifying features. These white-necked Jacobins obviously have this white neck here, and that helps you to identify them. And sketching and painting these colors helps you to learn them, right? There's a lot of birds to learn. Oh yeah, here's an orchid. Yeah, those are fun to sketch in the tropics, and of course they really vary in their shapes and sizes. We saw orchids that were as big as your hand to ones barely visible, like a millimeter large. Incredible diversity in the tropics of orchids. So again, just a field sketch, kind of getting the basic colors so that I could go and identify it later from a field book. I was in Borneo a couple years ago, and I was on this rocking boat, and I get seasick really easily. And and there were a lot of fumes from the boat, and the boat was going downstream, and we stopped and we saw these proboscis monkeys, and there's a whole harem of these guys, and you know, they're known for their big nose and their big belly, and the males for having big private parts. So, you know, I sketched this just in like 10 minutes while they stopped the boat, but it's rocking, you know, and I'm getting seasick and the fumes, but I captured the essence of it, right? And so that's the idea. In the historic city of Antigua, and what do you know, the volcano was erupting that very day. They have 33 volcanoes, a whole chain of volcanoes across the width of Guatemala. Only 3 of them are active, and of course, wouldn't you know, the day I'm there, it goes off, and we didn't even know when I was sitting here sketching this that it actually was the biggest eruption they'd had in years. And unfortunately, some people were killed on the far side on this little village where the people lived on the slopes. So I felt really bad for them. But anyway, this is an example of just a sketch that I was doing with, I added some opaque gouache. In this case, I used brown paper, and I really like this book because the brown paper helps to not have so much glare in really sunny situations. And I really enjoyed combining brown paper with brown pencil like this. And so it gives you just really subtle sketches. So it's not intimidating to work on, and it's easy to kind of just sketch and not see the mistakes and just kind of darken up what you do like. Now here's a rare species that we saw, and this illustration is a little bit more developed than others, partly because I finished it back at the hotel. And we're in the Guatemalan highlands, which are at like 12 to 14,000 feet. They're the highest area in all of Central America, and they have this rare warbler, Goldman's warbler, which is related to a butterbutt warbler. And it was just so amazing to see this bird. And I did use gouache here, which is an opaque watercolor, which are fun to add to your repertoire. So yeah, I did the sketches kind of in the field first, and then I made some color notes. Like you might see, I put white and black and gray, yellow. I put little notes here, probably can't see them, to remind me of the colors later. And I try not to look at field guides while I'm out sketching, partly because that can be intimidating, and partly because I really just want to sketch what I really see. You know, you don't discover anything new if you're just copying the field guide, right? So I want to just draw from real observations. So the opposite of that are these 2 pages, right? So basically in this case, these are birds that I just saw for literally a moment or two. And I didn't know what they were, but all I did was look in the scope and they flew off within literally like 5 or 10 seconds. And this is all I could get, just this really symbolic, you know, rust and gray and rust, or white and yellow. And so the function of that, the reason, you know, you would paint like that is just to get an identification. So afterwards, I could tell my guide, here's another painting, you know, this is almost like just a little map, right? I could tell my guide, hey, what is this species? And he would tell me. So I just had little notes for olive and yellow and rust and that kind of thing. There's lots of reasons to add watercolors when you're sketching in the field. Well, let's see, just the opposite of that. This is like the most finished sketch paint I did. I like to call it sketch painting. This was a very rare pink-headed warbler, an endemic bird that only lives in certain areas of these pine forests. You can see pines like what we have. Actually, the pine forests and oak forests are quite diverse in Central America. So I felt right at home there. But anyway, this was you know, a pretty developed painting because I was able to observe this mated pair over 2 different mornings, and they were very cooperative. I was able to look at them from the road. There was like a slope we were looking out over, and they were in the treetops right across from us. So I wasn't looking at them from below. Well, these guys I was. This is way, he was sitting way up above us, this male, but this one was right across from us. So because I was able to observe them multiple times, I was able to get a little bit more detail, obviously. So this wasn't done all in the field. I finished this up with some notes I'd made back at the hotel. Whereas this little guy, I never got any farther than just the pencil sketch. And you can see how nice and light, I don't know if you can see this at all, how nice and light this pencil is, the brown pencil on the brown paper. And so I really love that. So sometimes this is all the farther I get. It's just a quick sketch, and I may not have time to finish it later. You know, my technique for sketching birds and other moving wildlife in the field is to just watch them as long as they're in view, right? So I'm just looking at them with the binoculars or the spotting scope, burning their image basically into my memory so that I can try to draw them once they fly off. Now that takes a lot of practice, but basically some of these guys, well, like this guy, I guess, this sketch, that little hummingbird sat there for maybe a minute, and so I just looked and looked and looked, and it also helps to, you know, say to yourself, or even say out loud the characteristics. That was a tip I got from our friend Jack Laws, you've probably heard of as well. Jack is always saying, say out loud what you're seeing, and that will help you because you're saying it and you're hearing it, and hopefully maybe you're writing the notes down too. So you would be saying, you know, there's 2 different shades of pink on this bird, and some maroon, and he's, you know, like a songbird with kind of a long tail and a small beak for insects and that kind of thing. So any kind of verbalizing you can do can help you to remember it. Now here, I was in Borneo, again, same trip as before, and here I was lucky enough to be able to watch this mammal for quite a while, and so this is more of a fully rendered painting with a background and everything, right? This little guy is called a Colugo, and they are also known as flying lemurs, but they're not a primate, and they're not a lemur, and they're not a flying squirrel, although they have a lot of the same behaviors. But I was lucky enough to observe this guy because it was dusk, and she was just waking up, and it was just sitting above us, about 15 feet above us, hanging on a tree. And these guys hang on the tree all day, and in fact, the poor little guy, since he was hanging on the tree and he's holding on, he couldn't get the little gnats away from his face. They were really bugging him. I felt so sorry for him. And so he was using his tongue to kind of lick the gnats off of his eyes and his cheeks. It was really cute. But so this sketch is a little bit more developed because I had about an hour to watch him until he woke up, then he climbed up the tree, then he pooped, then he flew off from the treetop down to another tree, and he glided about 20 feet. It was really amazing to watch. And the fun thing about spotting scopes is you can put your camera, like this smartphone camera I'm recording with right now, you can put that right up to the spotting scope and take a picture, and that helps you to remember it. But why would you sketch right there in the field when you could take a picture of it and do it later? Well, there's lots of reasons, but one of the reasons is you're probably not going to get back to it. It's just so easy to take lots of pictures and never get back to things. So doing it in the field is just more exciting, and you'll get it done. I hope you enjoyed this virtual tour through my recent field sketches, and I hope it inspired you to try sketching and painting on your own. Now, if you liked this video, please consider subscribing to my YouTube channel and click that notification bell so you'll be the first to know when I post new videos about nature sketching, nature painting, journaling, and much more. Okay, thanks a lot. See you later.